The Atlanta Braves have had a ton of success winning division titles over the years, but it hasn't led to a lot of World Series titles. So, it leads to the question, especially in today's format, is the division title really necessary? How much is it really worth? I'll tell you on today's episode of Locked On Braves, so let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I am your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at ShortstopBall. Also, make sure you check out my written work over at BravesToday.com. Make sure that you follow the podcast on social media at LockedOn_Braves. Send in any questions, comments, or feedback that you have for the podcast. We'll have our mailbag episode on Friday. A lot of people ask how they can submit questions for that. We'll look for a tweet or a post from LockedOn_Braves on social media on Friday afternoon. Respond to that post, and it will be answered on our Friday mailbag episode. If you're new and watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Of over 8,700 subscribers now, inching towards 9K and hopefully 10K by opening day, which is coming quicker than you may think. And I need it to come here quickly. We need some baseball action, get us out of these cold doldrums of the winter that we are in right now. Also, make sure you hit that like button, help spread the show. Really appreciate it when you do that. You're watching or listening on the audio version. I appreciate your support as well. Make sure you leave me a 5-star review there, wherever you listen to your podcast. Thank you so much for your support of Locked On Braves. Got a lot of people here joining me live as I record. We got Mauricio, Anthony, Austin, Leland, Chris Hester, Truce in here as well. Jeffrey Humphreys, Chris Fields. Thank you so much for joining me here live. Do a lot of these off-season episodes live starting around 9 Central, 10 Eastern if you want to be a part of that. On today's episode, we're going to look at some postseason history. So you may not like what you have to hear about some of the Braves postseason history, but specifically I want to talk about division titles. And does winning the division matter? Does it matter in today's playoff format? I'll answer that question here in a second, and then we'll dive into some of the history and the numbers surrounding division winners. Before we do that, though, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, before we get into today's episode as well, if you missed Monday's episode, we talked all about the international prospects that the Braves signed on Monday, led by Jose Perdomo. Also retweeted a post on Espinal, the guy I talked about on Monday, who I said is looks the most physically gifted and a pretty incredible looking young man. Certainly a lot of potential there. So I'm excited about some of those guys. Can't wait to see them. Probably be a year or two at least before we see them in full season ball here in the States, but certainly is an exciting class. And again, you want to hear that discussion, you can go back and listen to Monday's podcast. But let's get into our discussion for today. And I headlined this, does winning the division matter? And just simply, and as some people, Jeffrey Humphreys and Chris Fields answered even before we got started, the simple answer is yes. Well, winning the division does matter, and it should matter a lot. And you prove you're the best team in your division over the most grueling schedule in all of sports. Maybe it's not the most physically demanding in terms of just when you're actually playing the game, but you're talking about 162 games. 162 games should tell us who the best team is. So to win your division over 162 game schedule, it should mean a lot just for your team. For your pride as a fan. Winning a division should mean a lot to you. So there's a lot of hard work that goes into that. We're talking about 162 game sample size to determine that your team is better than all the other teams in your division. I think that should mean a lot. And I think it should mean more than what 1 month of baseball means in October. And I understand I'm saying that as a Braves fan, and we haven't had the most luck or most success in the postseason. But I just feel like 162 games is a better showing of who the better team is than 1 month in October. But we're not trained to think that way. And I said that even coming into the playoffs, even before this past postseason, we're just not trained that way. We're trained that the only thing that matters is what happens in October. And I get that. And I certainly understand that mind frame, but the division should matter. Winning that should be, very fulfilling as a fan, as a player. You should take great pride in the fact when you win a division. I certainly believe that. As Spirit Runner says, the 162 is the test. I agree, 100%. Even in this current format, when we're talking about does it matter to win the division, I still say yes. Despite what has happened to the Braves in the past 2 postseasons, I still say yes. Winning the division should matter and should be what you're shooting for. I'd much rather win the division and face a wild card series where anything can happen in a 3-game series. You go in there, you have a couple of bad games, and you're out without even getting to a 3rd game. I would much rather avoid that wild card series, get a bye, set up my starting rotation, and get ready for the division series round. That is the way to go. I know maybe there were some feelings after what's happened the last 2 years that maybe the Braves should tank for a wild card spot. Absolutely not. Even with what has happened, I still think your best chance of winning it all is winning your division, getting that first round bye. And I still believe that, even with the 2 letdowns you've had the last 2 years in this current format. I'm never going to advocate for wanting my team to take their foot off the brake and win 84, 86 games just to get a wild card spot. I'm never want to see a team have to do that or think they have to do that because it's the better path for them to win a World Series, nor do I think that is the right thing to do. I do think it's interesting. The Braves won their 84th game last year on August the 6th. The Diamondbacks won their 84th game over a month later, and they made the World Series. So it's not a perfect system. It's not about fair. And again, I know everybody's mad at Jake Mitz for what he said in the postseason, but he's the one that told me before that postseason before that postseason started, that the postseason's not about fair, and it's not. And we know that at this point. But I still believe winning the division should matter, and even in this format, it should be what you are shooting for. Let's talk about a little Braves history, though, when it comes to the postseason. We'll start with the good. The Braves have won the most division titles since 1969, when divisions really became a thing and you went to the divisional series in the postseason. The Braves have won the most division titles of anyone with 23. The Dodgers have the second most with 21. Then, of course, you got the Yankees with 20. Might surprise you to know the A's have the fourth most with 17. The Braves obviously had that 14-year run from 1991 to 2005. You had the strike year in there as well. We don't include that, but they won 14 straight division titles from 91 to 2005, and now they're currently on a 6-year run of winning the division. The Braves have won the NL East 18 times since joining the NL East in 1995. 18 of the last 29 years, the Braves have won the NL East. That's incredible. The Phillies have the next most NL East titles with 11, and they've been in the division 20 years longer. I mean, again, you should be prideful as a fan in this accomplishment by the Braves. The fact they've won that many division titles, I think, is just a testament to the long-standing success of this franchise and just how good they've been for so many years, 30 years going on. I mean, it really is, truly incredible what they've done. As T-Raj Dorr says, I love winning the division, and you should. It should be something that is celebrated. And the Braves have done that more than anyone. Now, playoff history, the Braves have, since 1969, since the division series came into place, the Braves have won the World Series just twice. And when you're having this argument with fans of other fan bases, when you tell them all the division titles the Braves have won, how they won 14 in a row, how they've currently won 6 in a row, the thing they're going to throw back in your face is the fact that the Braves have only won 2 World Series during that time. Do you know how many teams have won more than 2 World Series during that time? Not that many. When you look back at it, not that many teams. The Yankees have won 5, the Red Sox have won 4, and the Giants have won 3. Those are the only 3 teams that have won more than 2 World Series over that stretch, or going back since 1991, rather, not 1969, but since 1991, when the Braves, really started this run of division titles. Only 3 teams have won more than 2 World Series. You got the Blue Jays, who won 2, and those were back to back in 92 and 93. You got the Marlins, who somehow won 2. You got the Cardinals and the Astros, who have won 2. Not a lot of teams out there in the last 30 years that have won more than 2 World Series. The Braves have done that. And again, they've done that while winning 23 division titles. They've been in the World Series 6 times. So that's 23 division titles, 6 World Series appearances, 2 World Series titles. I think as Braves fans, what hurts the most is a lot of those times the Braves are getting bounced in the first round. In the 90s, at least, they were advancing. They were getting to the World Series every now and then. But since 2000, they've made the postseason 15 times, and they've been eliminated in the first round 12 times. Only 3 of the last 15 times have the Braves advanced past the first round. That's tough. That's really, really tough as a fan. But I would ask you, in the alternative, would you rather the Braves not have made the postseason? Would you rather the Braves have gotten bounced in the championship series? Would you rather them just lose the World Series? Does it matter to you when the Braves lose in the postseason? Would you rather your team just not make the postseason at all? I got to imagine, as a fan, you'd rather have your team in contention every year and have a chance every year. At least that's how I feel. Again, getting into the postseason, we're going to talk about it in a minute. I mean, winning your division does help. And more often than not, the division winner does win the World Series. But things do happen in the postseason. This is baseball. And again, 1 month sample size, a lot of things can happen, especially when you got a lot of really good teams who are playing, and the format, continues to get expanded. But that's tough as Braves fans, certainly, when you've made the postseason 15 times since 2000 and you advance past the first round just 3 times in that span. That is certainly a tough pill to swallow. Looking at the wild card burst for the Braves, there's not many. A wild card became a thing in 1995. The Braves have had just 2 wild card bursts. And I'm going to tell you how those seasons went, and most of you probably know. And then we'll talk about how many wild card teams have actually won the World Series, and if it's a huge difference between teams winning the division. Probably already given that away, but I'll talk about that more here next. Get in on all the action this NFL postseason with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action than right now. Their app is also so easy to use. Many different ways to bets, like live same-game parlays. Find bets in the new Explore tab. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and much more over at FanDuel.com/locked-on. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on, or go ahead and use their easy app. You got the NFL playoffs going on right now. The division series rounds are happening. You got MLB futures bets that are up as well. You got Acuna and Strider as your MVP and Cy Young front runners. You can see all the MLB futures bets over there at FanDuel.com/locked-on. Also, make sure you visit FanDuel.com/play-safe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way you play. That's FanDuel.com/locked-on. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. After the holidays, we could all use a little extra cash in our pockets, especially after all the gift giving. We still need to buy the everyday things that we need. Make sure you're getting cash back on all your everyday purchases with Ibata. Ibata is a free app that gives you the most cash back every time you shop on hundreds of items, from groceries to beauty supplies to toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibata user earns $145 a year. I could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, help buy that plane ticket you've been looking at for a big trip, or getting ready for the Braves game, and you're going to need it to get to that opening day because that ticket is already hot. Join the over 50 million savers and earn cash back every time you shop from over 2,700 brands and retailers, including Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. And right now, Ibata is giving our listeners $5 just for trying Ibata by using the code LOCKEDONMLB when you register. That's LOCKEDONMLB. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store, download the free Ibata app to start earning cash, and use our code LOCKEDONMLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB to get your free $5. I want to remind you again that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Getting back into the Braves playoff discussion here, Braves have had 2 wild card bursts the entire time since 1995, since the wild card became a thing. Just 2 wild card bursts for the Braves. They've been winning all those divisions. And if you wonder if going the wild card route is the better move for the Braves, just based on the limited experience that you have, that's not the case. It has not been good for the Braves. 2010, they got the wild card spot. They won 91 games, had a plus 109 run differential, finished 6 games back of the Phillies, though, in the NL East. And they lost 3-1 in the NLDS to the San Francisco Giants. I attended that series myself. I was at the Brooks Conrad game where he made 3 errors. I also remember where I was when Rick Ankiel hit the big 11th inning homer in San Francisco. That was a very tight series. Lost all 3 games in that series by 1 run. And of course, the Giants went on to win the World Series that year. That's a tough one, as many of these are. I see a lot of people talking in the comments section about these just misses by the Braves and things that have just not gone their way in the postseason. That's one that definitely hurts. And then the only other time the Braves finished in a wild card spot was 2012, which just happened to be the year that they introduced the 1-game wild card game, which is the dumbest thing that Major League Baseball has ever done. Right up there with making the All-Star game actually mean something significant. 2012, they won 94 games, finished 4 games back of the Nats, had 6 more wins than the second wild card team in the Cardinals. Of course, we all know what happened in one game, as anything can happen in one game in baseball. You had the infield fly rule. Who knows if that would have changed the outcome of that game? Braves certainly hurt themselves in that. Chipper Jones included hurt themselves in that game. But certainly not fun times thinking about that 2012 wild card game. I unfortunately remember where I was watching that one as well. So things have not gone well for the Braves in a wild card game. So again, if you're thinking the Braves need to forfeit the division and just go for a wild card spot, wild card has not been very fun to the Braves so far. Now, looking at the trends for who's won, division winners, how many division winners have won the World Series, how many wild card teams have won the World Series. Going back to 1995, since the wild card became a thing, 21 teams of 29 have been division winners that have won the World Series. Let me say that again because I don't think that sentence was coherent. 21 times over the last 29 years, the team that has won the World Series has also won their division. So again, more often than not, the better teams are winning. The division winners are winning. More often than not, that is the case. 8 wildcard teams have won the World Series since 1995. So it's not a small number of wildcard teams, certainly. But again, 21 times it's been a division winner. 8 times it's been a wildcard team. That, again, is probably a pretty normal ratio, I would assume. Are we going to see that change now that the playoff format's been expanded even more? Probably. I think we're going to continue to see more wildcard teams advance and get to the World Series and possibly win a World Series. Obviously, this last year we had 2 wild card teams reached the World Series, and obviously one of them won it. But 8 times since 1995, a wild card team has gone on to win the World Series. How many wild card teams have made the World Series? 15. 15 wild card teams since 1995 have made the World Series. So it's certainly not impossible. And I would actually say, it's pretty common that we're seeing wild card teams advance, wild card teams reach the World Series, and wild card teams make the World Series. But it's not to a point where winning the division is deemed meaningless. That is certainly not the case. And more often than not, the better team wins, the division winner wins, and that's how it should be. Now, you can make the case, and I've made the case, that winning the division should mean more, and you should get more of a benefit. And I still feel like that needs to happen. But fact of the matter is, the Braves have just not gotten it done in the postseason. When it comes down to it, the Braves just have failed time after time in the postseason and early on. How does that change? I don't know. And I'm sure the Braves wish that they knew. I'm sure they're aware of it. You hope they don't become aware of it to the point where it's just something that's looming over their heads. I was hoping the 2020 and 2021 seasons have kind of put us past that. But now we are here back-to-back years of great teams, 2 of the best Braves teams, I think, in the team's history, and they get bounced in the first round. So, look, baseball is what it is. And like I said, more often than not, the better team's going to win. And more often than not, you want to win that division. I still think that means a lot. And I still think that is the best way to go about trying to win a World Series. And hopefully the Braves are going to win many, many more. All right, next we'll get into some news of the day, and including some Braves news. Got a little bit of a minor league signing going on. Got some possible news about TV contracts and how that could be changing. We'll discuss that and more next. I know we come to sports to escape from the crazy realities of real life, but if we could talk for just a minute about something to help you prepare you for that real life. According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade. And that can be pretty scary. I'm dealing with some of that myself right now at home. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than if my wife or one of my kids got sick while a supply chain issue kept them from life-saving medication that they needed. Thankfully, we'll be okay because of Jase Medical. I've got my Jase case, which is packed with 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, skin infections, among others. This stuff can happen to any of us. So make sure you visit jasemedical.com, complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. Again, did this myself over at jasemedical.com. Super easy process. Got my Jase case in the mail about a week later. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. So go to jasemedical.com. Use our offer code LOCKEDON. That's LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. That's promo code LOCKEDON at jasemedical.com. I want to remind you one more time that Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, getting to a little bit of news that we have from the day. Something we've talked about on here, something I wrote about over at BravesToday.com. The Braves signed Jordan Luplow to a minor league deal. This felt inevitable. Braves had him in camp last year. The guy crushes lefties. Now, some people took this as meaning that this is the right-handed bat the Braves are going to get for the bench. I would not jump to that conclusion just yet. I still feel like they're probably going to find somebody on a major league deal for the bench. Luplow is just insurance, same as last year. They brought him in, and Kevin Pillar ended up winning out on that job, but who was also here on a minor league deal. So I wouldn't jump to that conclusion just yet. I think he's just there for insurance, give the Braves some depth for a right-handed outfield option and a guy who crushes lefties in his career. Braves pitchers and catchers are reporting on February 14th, so less than a month now. First full workout on February 20th and the first game on February 24th. We are not that far away from getting things going in spring training, so looking forward to all of that. Also, maybe the biggest news on a Wednesday, Amazon Prime is working to acquire Diamond Sports, which runs Bally Sports. So we could eventually start seeing games on Amazon Prime. What this is going to look like, it is still far too early in the process to know, and a lot more things that have to be taken care of between Diamond and Amazon and with Major League Baseball. Still a lot to be discussed. From my understanding, this isn't going to change anything with the Braves for 2024. I think even before all of this happened, I believe they'd already said that the Braves would remain on Bally and where they are now through the 2024 season. And then after that, things would be up in the air. So I don't think anything is changing for the Braves right now. But in the future, we could see games on Amazon Prime. Hopefully, that's part of Amazon Prime and not an Amazon Prime exclusive. But knowing Major League Baseball, knowing owners, millionaires, Amazon themselves, they want to make money. So I'm sure there's going to be a cost associated with this in the future. Whatever it's going to be, just please make it easy for us to watch our favorite teams. However this pans out, just please make it easy for us to watch our favorite teams. That's all we really ask. We don't ask for too much here. All right, we'll take a couple of questions from the comments section. Truce Atlas says, any explanation for Albie's defensive decline and lack of stolen bases? When does it become a concern? Ozzie a better value at DH with the glove off the bench. How concerned for future of shortstop and second base? I'm not concerned about Ozzie's offense in the slightest, which was great last year. The defense is a major concern, and only thing I can attribute the decline to is the shoulder issues that he had, but that would really only be affecting his arm, which has never been great, or the shift going away. Maybe the shift helped cover up a lot of his defensive deficiencies with his range. Either way, we got to see him make improvements and get better. Really, the entire infield, especially that right side with Ozzie and Matt Olson, that had to be one of the worst defensive right sides of the infield in all of baseball. I haven't looked close enough to really see what the issues were, other than I know it's just a lack of range, but certainly want to see him get better. I don't think he's going to become a DH. I don't think that's going to happen. I'm not concerned about him offensively, but defensively would love to see Ozzie make some improvements this upcoming season. Nick Harvey says, how much of the struggles the past two seasons will turn into a mental block for the future? That's what I worry, especially you got this same group. If you don't shake it up with new guys and new attitudes, I do maybe worry about that a little bit. That it's, here we go again. Another first, you lose that first game of the NLDS and you say, here we go again. I do worry about that a little bit, but not too much. Win Gracer 16. So the 95 Indians were better than the Braves. No, they absolutely were not. The Braves won that. It's crazy to me too, and I'm not accusing anybody of that Indians team of being on steroids, but the Braves won so much during that time, and they were dominating with great pitching and defense while everybody else was dominating with big offense because of steroids. Either way, kind of beside the point, but I've always found that a little bit interesting. The Braves were trying to do it the wrong way during that whole time. Wesley Hoover says, any chance we get Max locked up on the long-term deal before the start of the year? I'd say the chances of that happening are pretty much close to zero, if not zero at this point. Couple of reasons. It was going to happen. I would think it would have happened by now. Another reason is if you extend him now, then you're going over that third luxury tax threshold. And I think the Braves are going to want to try to stay under that luxury tax threshold, but extending him now, they definitely would push them over that. So I think if the Braves could get a deal done or felt like they could get a deal done, they would have already done it. But now that they haven't, and they're so close to that third threshold, I think that's kind of telling to the fact that it's not going to happen at this point. Maybe it happens once the season ends, but I think it's a very slim chance that happens before the start of the season. All right, I think that will do it for all the questions today. Thanks so much for joining live, submitting some of those questions, joining me here, going through that fun discussion of the Braves postseason history. Hopefully we have much better success going forward. Either way, at the end of the day, this Braves team is really, really good. This franchise is really, really good. They've had a lot of winning success over the years in the regular season. And I get it. I hear people on here saying it's all about the World Series or nothing. I understand that mentality. Hopefully we're getting to that. I see Doc's cards, World Series or bust. This can't be the 90s Braves again. You're going to hear a lot of that discussion. See other people in here saying it's all about what happens in the World Series. The ATL guy says World Series is all. I get that, and hopefully the Braves get that as well. I know that they do, but hopefully we see a lot more postseason success going forward. But bottom line is, to just wrap up the discussion, winning the division is still the way to go. Wild card has not been good to the Braves. Postseason history tell us that the division winner wins far more often than the wild card team does. So Braves, keep winning those division titles. Hopefully have a little bit better success, or a lot better success in the postseason. Bring home another World Series title here pretty soon with this great core of players that they have locked up for so long. Looking forward to this 2024 season. Again, we're less than a month away from catchers and pitchers reporting. Can't wait for that to happen. That would do for this episode of Locked On Braves. Thanks so much for listening. You're watching on YouTube. Hit that thumbs up button. Hit that subscribe button if you're new. If you're listening to the podcast, wherever you get your podcast, make sure you give me a 5-star review, whether that's Amazon, Spotify, whatever it may be, Google Play, whatever it happens to be. I do appreciate all your support here at Locked On Braves. Follow us on social media at shortstopball, at Locked On _Braves, and we will talk to you next time.